Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. The State Bank of Pakistan has announced to introduce new currency notes with the international security features. The State Bank of Pakistan's governor has also said these notes will have new design and new serial numbers also. He has also said this particular switchover is not going to be disruptive and it's not going to happen the way it happened in India. There's a statement that has come from the State Bank of Pakistan is also saying any decision on the withdrawal will be taken in a gradual manner and existing bank notes will remain in circulation even after the issuance of the new currency notes. The State Bank of Pakistan statement went on to say that generally it takes 2 to 3 years to launch a new banknote series. However, the bank intends to complete the process within the next 2 years. It has also announced to organize an art competition for having the innovative and thematic designs related to these new currency notes. And this particular phase is going to be finalized around March this year. We'll be talking about this particular drive of introducing new currency notes, what sort of an impact it would have on the overall economy, why the State Bank of Pakistan thought it necessary to introduce new currency notes, and what sort of impact it will later on have. How much time usually does it take for new currency notes to come into circulation? And we'll be talking about all these aspects. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Usman Chohan. He's an economist. Dr. Chohan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Muhammad Shaf Najib. He's economist, research fellow at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Mr. Najib, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Chohan. Now, this particular drive, in economic terms, do we call it demonetization? And usually, generally, we talk about it. Why does it happen? Why is it carried out by the government or the central banks?
Oh, thank you for the question. Demonetization actually has multiple meanings. One example of demonetization is to take out several denominations of currency entirely out of circulation. Another one is to have it replaced, which you can actually call a remonetization. That seems to be what we're doing. And another one is the debasement of the currency if it is a fixed exchange system. So because there are various definitions, you will hear the term demonetization. But the focus of the State Bank right now is on implementing security features for higher quality notes. And I think this is an excellent measure because we should be adhering to international standards, especially in the circulation of our cash economy. And ultimately, like other countries, particularly developed countries, we should be moving towards a cashless economy using cards and digital transfers in the long run. And so cash should be something more of a novelty than it is right now.
Right, Dr. Chohan, your understanding regarding its impact on overall inflation?
The inflationary problem in Pakistan is more of a supply side issue, which is to say that there's key commodities that either we have to import or that we don't produce in sufficient quantity given the growing population, etc. So having money is just an exchange of a medium of exchange. Therefore, replacing one 1,000 rupee note with another fancier, more robust 1,000 rupee note should not impact that. But as Najib Saab correctly pointed out, in terms of data gathering in a cash economy, the best way probably is what the State Bank is doing, which is that it is trying to get the money back in, track it, and then issue new stuff. So for tracking purposes, it is certainly helpful, but it isn't something that one can use as an instrument for monetary policy in the sense of tackling inflation. And a better instrument for that is, of course, the interest rate, which in Pakistan tends to be very high.
Right. So why tracking becomes so much necessary, and where do you feel, or where the central bank feels that this particular point in time has come when tracking that how much cash is in circulation and how much cash is not in circulation, when that point comes?
You should monitor it periodically, and the periods can be a decade or two, but it should be done with a reasonable amount of frequency insofar as you want to have some concept. This is not with entire precision. The entire precision would come if we were in a cashless digital type economy, but it gives you some concept of how things are working, and you should do it in a periodic manner. And ultimately, I believe that for our facility as consumers, as users of money, it is important for us to have more modern implementations rather than be running around with the pieces of banknotes, or, as Najib Saab said, stuffing it under the mattress. This is probably not a convenient way for us to manage our lives.
Right, we are right. Dr. Chohan, now talking about the security features. So what could those security features ideally be to make a currency note more secure and viable?
Well, there's some sort of plastic usage on the fabric, as our colleague correctly mentioned, as well as it's shining on ultraviolet. Those features are physical attributes, but again, it's more of a cost-benefit analysis that you have to do, because you can put a ton of features into a piece of paper, but is that really worth it for example, 100 rupees, which is like 30 cents? It's just simply not worth it. But for a 5,000 rupee, and that's where you would be more concerned about money laundering, perhaps you would want that. But then again, our highest denominated note is the 5,000 rupee orange color, and it is only worth now, I think, 17 US dollars. So with your highest denomination, you still have to carry a lot of 5,000 rupee notes if you have to do any serious transaction, as opposed to, for example, 200 pounds mentioned earlier. But the largest one I'm aware of is the 500 euros, which aren't found so frequently, but they're really valuable thing to have in your pocket. I would be kind of nervous walking around with one of them. So it's more of a cost benefit, because for 5,000 rupees, yes, it makes sense to have good features so that it isn't used for money laundering or those sorts of.
So what about the counterfeit notes, the currency notes? So once a counterfeit note or the batch of it comes into circulation, what sort of challenges does it bring with itself? So in order to address that particular problem, don't you think the entire series of all the denominations should be carrying equal security features in themselves?
You can measure it visualize it in your mind as a kind of curve, where at some spectrum of the curve, it isn't worth it, because how many money launderers walk around with 50 rupee notes? It simply wouldn't, they don't do that. But at the 5,000 rupee level, yes, it is worth it, because if you have a briefcase worth of counterfeit 5,000 rupee notes, you could probably purchase a house or something. So that's where it really matters.
So what I understand from your take is that the entire series of the banknotes of all the denominations don't require equal security features.
Well, I actually would argue for having one denomination higher with robust security features. There should be a 10,000 rupee note, and if it's secure, it would be much more convenient for people.
Okay, Dr. Chohan, your understanding regarding going towards an ecosystem with more of the digital transactions and digital currency in circulation.
Yes, I fully agree with my two colleagues that we need to create an incentive structure. This is true. My concern is not so much the urban-rural divide. This is something that is more a legacy of previous decades. My actual concern is the gender divide. You see, because many households in Pakistan, it is the man that will deal with the finance, and that's the beginning and end of it. So even if you are in a privileged area of a major city, that doesn't mean that as a woman you are financially empowered. And I think this is a big concern. So if you take the example of a household of 5, and you're concerned that only one of them has the mobile phones, you know, if all 5 of them had it, still it would be Papa who would be making the financial decisions. And this is, I think, a bigger concern. The statistic is anywhere from 8 to 20%, depending on who you ask, of women who have serious financial empowerment through the banking channel. So this women empowerment element is very serious. It has to be addressed, and I think that will help to positively impact consumption saving behavior, because there's a motherly instinct involved that is very useful for household protection. And so financial and consumption decisions will be optimized through better gender equality, whether you're rural or urban.
Okay, Dr. Chohan, what sort of an impact it might have on the overall, once the documentation is done, and of course there is going to be a deadline perhaps 3 months later on or 6 months later on after this particular drive goes into effect. Of course, those people who have got huge chunks of cash hidden somewhere in the warehouse or under the mattresses, they are also going to show up with that particular cash at the end of the day. So how is it going to impact when that documentation has already taken place after this particular drive on the overall making people to come under the tax, or in broadening the tax base as well, and impact on the overall GDP because of the enhanced and higher revenue collection through taxes?
Insofar as the money change into higher securitized features goes, it won't impact. But then if this is part of a larger drive, and I understand this move by the SBB to contribute to a larger economic revival, then there are bigger questions involved. So if I have a newer, fancier thing under my mattress, it's still under my mattress. The incentivized structure that we have covered at length is really what matters here. And insofar as we want to go towards a digitized system with empowerment for all of our citizens, participatory economy, that requires far more than just making a prettier, safer banknote, and the SBP understands that. So it's part of a larger vision, and there will be other parts of it. And the biggest responsibility for the state bank is not prettier banknotes, but in fact to think about the interest rate at 22%. When you have a discount rate of 22%, it means it is catastrophic for business activity. And yes, we have been through a global economic catastrophe, but generally I'm seeing that countries are starting to rise up, and we want to be among those who rise up. And therefore, interest rate policy is the singular and most important part of an independent central bank as it has been envisaged since 2021.
Your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.